I'm just here with your Bolens snowblower. The issues you were having was that it was running rough and it was hard to get it started. I think you said that, and not working properly. Um, so what I did is I gave it a check over. First thing I noticed when I picked it up was I was not able to get it to start. So I always, right first thing, I'm going to suspect a fuel system issue. And what I've done so far is, besides taking over the machine, I've removed your carburetor. I've got this over here on the workbench. And I also have a picture or two that I can send you. So this is your carburetor, and in the carburetor, inside the throat of the carburetor, so your carburetor would be, this is the engine side, this is the intake side, and when I first took the cover off, those are the items that I found inside the carburetor. So if I don't miss my guess, those look like seeds that you would find. We used to call them helicopter seeds when I was a kid. Commonly see them fall off of maple trees, I do believe. So wherever you have the snowblower stored, you'll find that you are getting an accumulation of those in your snowblower. So I would maybe find another spot to cover it, or move it to another area, or cover it over in a nice tarp or something like that when you're storing it. So that's the first item. Next, pull the bowl off the bottom of your carburetor. So when the fuel comes in this line, and this is basically what your carburetor looks like. And this little float valve, kind of very similar to your toilet, is sitting in here. And as the level in the carburetor fills up, so this would be like the empty position, and then as the level fills up, it closes that little needle and seat. So you have dirt contamination in the bowl in your carburetor, so that gets sucked up into the main jets, little tiny orifices and such in your carburetor, and that makes it so it doesn't run properly. And pieces of maple tree have a big part to play in that. So this is most of what's in here. All that on the left-hand side of the dish, all the brownish sediment, that all came out of the bowl in your carburetor. The bigger black stuff over in this area were the pieces of the maple tree stuff. Next, since you've been choking off the flow of air through the carburetor, you've effectively been choking it all the time, so it's been running rich, and this results in fouling your spark plug is now carbon fouled, so you need a new spark plug. So ultrasonic cleaning of the carburetor. I will pressure test the needle and seat to make sure it's sealing properly, because that is the only fuel valve in your entire fuel system, because there's no manual on-off valve on these snowblowers. So you want to make sure they're working, and I'll get to the reason why in just a minute. So we'll ultrasonically clean that, and if I need a new needle and seat, I'll let you know. But what I'll probably do is I'll just include that in the estimate. If I don't need it, it won't be on the invoice at the end. I'll need another fuel bowl gasket, and I'll need the gaskets for reinstalling the carburetor back on the engine. Next, so the reason that it's important that that needle and seat is sealing is, so here's your fuel. So just explain this quickly. Here's your fuel tank. There's your fuel line. There's the hole that goes into the engine. If that needle and seat isn't sealing, so that it only allows the carburetor to fill a certain amount, after it gets past that certain amount, it lets the excess fuel go into the engine. And that ends up into the crankcase. So unless you have been overfilling it with oil, it's going to be hard to show you now, because I've already had it tipped up for a few minutes. But your dipstick oil level is probably 3 times what it should have in the crankcase. That will also make it hard for the engine to run. And the sort of a result or a symptom of that is you have a crankcase vent on your engine. and it's for positive crankcase pressure. Hopefully I'm not explaining too much, but anyway, as your piston goes up in the cylinder, it makes compression. That makes your engine go, but it also makes compression when it goes down in the cylinder. That's called positive crankcase pressure, and that has to be vented somewhere, otherwise the engine would seize. So if you have too much oil or more oil than volume in the engine than the engine was designed to hold, it will vent the excess into your breather. And actually you can see where that's that shiny stuff down there in the bottom. That is oil and gas or something stale smelling. So I'm going to suggest that we do an oil change. Next, this tire, like I said, isn't on the bead. You can see the space between the bead and the tire, so I'll have to see if I can get the bead back up and fix that flat. That's a flat tire. This tire is also very low on air. It's not off the bead yet, so I'll inflate that. Your control cables need to be adjusted, especially I noticed your auger one. Somebody's put a washer on here too, I guess, to hold the bracket a little bit better. That auger, excuse me, your drive cable needs to be adjusted just a little bit. Drive itself is in pretty good shape, besides a bit of dirt down in here, but the rubber disc is in good shape, and the steel disc is in good shape too. So somebody serviced it sometime along the way. Checked your belts, so we're just going to tip down here, so bear with me. I checked your belts, make sure they were still in usable condition. Neither of them are burnt or anything like that, so I see a lot of that this time of the year, but yours are still in good shape. Your electric starter works fine. To be able to get the cover off the front of the engine, I have to remove just the control for that, but otherwise your belts are in good shape. I did note that your belt cover and retainer is starting to get wore. So if you see that spot right up here by my thumb, if I turn this cover like this, you can see that that's actually a hump. And the purpose of that little hump is to act as a retainer for the belts. So when you're snow blowing along, and I'll just grab the auger handle here and pull the augers. So I've engaged the augers. You can see that the idler pulley is making it so there's tension on the belt, and that makes it so your augers turn. But if I let go of that quick, you can see that there's easily enough slack that belt can come off, and the purpose of that little bump is to make it so that doesn't happen. And when that bump gets wore out enough, that is what happens. The belt will eventually pop off the pulley, and then you don't have a snow blower that's working properly anymore. Now, depending on the snow, because I don't know the way the winter's going, I don't know if we're going to get more snow or not enough snow. You might be able to make it to the end of the winter with it, or we can replace it now. I'll put it on the estimate. It's completely up to you. But you can see that it's almost wore right down to the bottom. Once the whole hump is gone, it's toast, and usually a symptom that they're getting wore out is they start wearing more on the other side as well. And eventually they'll wear a hole out to the side of the cover. Let's see. So oil change, cover, tires, carburetor, spark plug, adjust the cables, light works, starter works, recoil rope is fine. I'll lubricate up your chute controls. They're a little bit stiff. See if I can get them to work a little bit better for you. And you also have one shear pin missing, so I can replace that as well. Other than that, I don't think it's something that I think it still has some use left in it. I don't think you should throw it away. Oh yes, one other thing. Your scraper blade that runs across the bottom of the snowblower auger housing here. That is actually not supposed to touch the ground, so that's supposed to be adjusted even for a paved driveway. So it's at about a quarter of an inch above the ground. It's a quarter of an inch, or plus or minus an eighth of an inch, I guess. I have little spacers that I use to adjust them, and the way you adjust it is by way of your skid shoes, which are actually supposed to be touching the ground, and you can see this one is mostly not. So I would adjust that. I'll flip this over, adjust it to the right height, and make it so that it's doing a job it's supposed to do. Anyway, if you have any questions, let me know. Sorry for the real long video. I hope I haven't taken up too much of your time. And like I said, I'll send along an estimate.